people and in small groups, and then if there is a positive test, go back into the adjoining room because the ventilation system blows air that way. So there's a lot of gnashing of teeth, if you will, about that. So yes, I think there's lots more to be done in terms of research, looking at how we handle buildings and how we handle people. Now, one of the things that I am experiencing, lots of people are working off-site. Many people, I think it's going to be a permanent change. And that has some pluses to it. One, they don't have to get in a car. They can improve the environment of the planet by decreasing carbon monoxide and all of that by not having to drive and commute to work. So that's one issue. The other issue is we really need to look at how we can do better with air quality in buildings and, for that matter, even airplanes. How can we effectively rid that air, especially if it's recirculated, from circulating virus?
And until we get to that point, let's talk about masks.
Especially if it's recirculated from circulating virus.
And until we get to that point, let's talk about masks.
So that would be a dramatic improvement. So everyone needs to wear a mask.
As we navigate down this road, Dr. Mike, what's your biggest worry, your biggest concern?
Well, we're seeing my biggest worry right now, Thomas, the fact that many people don't take this seriously. Just yesterday, I had a patient come in who believes that this is all a hoax. It's not real. It's not, it's fake. It's made up. It's political. And that worries me because people just don't get it. This is a real thing. It is a virus. We are in a pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen since 1918. And the bottom line is we all need to take it seriously, of all ages, of all socioeconomic backgrounds. And if we do it right, we will get through this. But what we're seeing are large numbers of people who don't think that this is the big thing. It's not a big deal, and they're being very cavalier about it, and it's harming people. I had another patient, Thomas, who had a daughter who went to the shore, came back after being at a party, and guess what? Her mother now, who is my patient, has the virus. And so that has sent a trickle effect. Now we have to worry about the young person's father. Now we have to worry about everybody that he works with. It goes on and on. There are tremendous ramifications from the actions of a few.
On your previous thought, I'm curious, what did you tell your patient?
Basically, I told my patient that, look, you need to talk to your youngins, if you will, and make sure that they know that if they go away to beaches and parties and things and take this cavalierly, it can have great ramifications. My patient, who's now positive, is self-quarantining for 14 days and checking their oxygen levels and their temperature and calling me every day. If they start to get worse, their oxygen levels go down, then they will be forced to go to the hospital and be monitored and possibly, God forbid, end up on a ventilator. Regarding my patient's husband, who is also my patient, they're being tested today. This all went down yesterday, and we shall see.
For those who are self-isolating at home, how do they check their oxygen levels?
Well, Thomas, I'm a big fan of these little pulse oximeter devices, which are readily available and very inexpensive. And what you do is you buy them, you put it on your finger, and it measures your oxygen level. Now, they're not 100% accurate, but they give us a good idea of where you stand. It's almost like a home blood pressure monitor. And I had two patients who were monitoring their oxygen levels. They were going along okay, and then all of a sudden, about 7 or 8 days into their illness, their oxygen levels went down. I sent them to the hospital, and they ended up on a ventilator later that day. They are both alive, Thomas. I believe that that saved their lives by doing that. And what happens with this virus, you can go along and appear to be talking and no problems, but your oxygen levels are very dangerously low. So for that reason, I think it's a good idea to not only have a good thermometer at home, but also a pulse oximeter, which you can buy at drugstores, online, all over the place.
Could make a major difference. All right, Dr. Mike, our daily advice on staying safe?
Well, Thomas, as we just mentioned, we need to deal with this as we are all one. And by the way, we are. We are all on the planet. We're all dealing with a pandemic, and we're all at risk. And even if you're a young person and you are impervious to all of this, you need to realize that your actions can have serious consequences. So let's take this seriously. Let's take one day at a time. And every day that goes by, Thomas, we're one day closer to a vaccine. And then we can say goodbye to this virus.
Hopefully soon. Dr. Mike Sirigliano with Penn Medicine out of Philadelphia. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
To the Township of Irvington, and the support that he's given this township has been bar none. I want to also acknowledge the elected officials that we have here present. I'm going to start to my right with Freeholder Romaine Graham, Freeholder Luciano, our Freeholder President Brendan Gill, our East Ward Councilman Sean Evans, our Council President Renee Burgess, our Councilwoman at Large Charnette Frederick, and we have our Councilwoman from the South Ward Jamila Beasley. Also, I'm honored here to introduce our Senate President, Mr. Stephen Sweeney, and my favorite adopted Senator, Teresa Ruiz. You know, this is a great partnership with the Township of Irvington and the state of New Jersey, and I'm honored and privileged to introduce the leader of this school district, the superintendent of schools, my wife, the Honorable, I like to call her Honorable because in my household she's honorable, the Honorable Dr. April Voss.
Thank you. Good afternoon and greetings to our Irvington residents, students, staff, and administration. If I can get my administration to stand up, please. Thank you, thank you. First, I would like to acknowledge the principal of this great school, Ms. Malika DeWright. Thank you, thank you. First, I would like to acknowledge the principal of this great school, Ms. Malika DeWright. Learning and to replicate our standards for student engagement and quality instruction, we still lack the ability to close the gap, and we're challenged to meet the critical needs of student technological access. Not only as superintendent, but as a resident of Irvington, I see the full impact of how this divide has affected my community. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented an unprecedented situation in Irvington, the state of New Jersey, and throughout our great nation. This necessitated everyone to immediately implement remote learning. So today, I stand before you proudly to support Governor Murphy's Digital Divide Initiative to bridge the gap in students' needs as we look ahead to reopening schools throughout New Jersey. This initiative will fulfill our motto here in Irvington of building our community one student at a time. So it is my privilege, it is indeed my honor to introduce the great governor of this state, the Honorable Phil Murphy.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a day. Huh? What a day the Lord has made, as they say. Bear with me a second. I'm not used to the amount of time it takes to get the mask off. Good afternoon. Thank you, Superintendent and First Lady Dr. April Voss, for that introduction, for your extraordinary leadership. And I'm going to appeal to one of the areas of your academic expertise. Ohayou gozaimasu. Ohayou gozaimasu. All right. And through you, I thank the wonderful educators and support staff here in Irvington for all they do for the students and families in this community. And so many folks have been shouted out, so I don't want to repeat that, except to say I want to give a particular thanks to the Madison Avenue team led by Malikada Wright, your principal. So thank you again for hosting us. I also acknowledge my dear friend and a great leader, great mayor, the Honorable Mayor Tony Voss. Thank you, Tony. And the other folks up here with April and Tony and me. I want to give a big shout out to the Senate President Steve Sweeney because, among other things, thanks to his leadership, the New Jersey Senate has just approved our ability to bond, and we desperately need that. And he had a supporter at every step of the way. Right beside him, Essex County's own, the chairwoman of the Senate Education Committee, another dear friend and great leader, Senator Teresa Ruiz. And we also have with us a guy you may not know, but you will know, the interim Commissioner of Education, Kevin Deemer, is with us. Kevin. And I'm honored to be among educational, elected officials, public leaders to help close the digital divide and ensure that every student, not most, not many, but every student has the tools they need for successful remote learning. If you could bear with me, however, for 2 minutes off topic. Before we get to that, I'd like to just give you the quick overnight numbers on this awful pandemic. Today, the Department of Health reported an additional 254 positive cases. That's a total of 176,501 cumulatively since our first positive test on March 4th. We confirm with the heaviest heart the loss of another 32 brothers and sisters to COVID-19. Our death toll now stands at 13,691 with another almost 2,000 probable deaths from COVID-19. Each of the key hospital metrics are down over day, and that's a good thing. Total patients, intensive care, ventilators in use. However, a little bit of a area for concern, but one day does not a trend make. The statewide positivity rate for tests is 2.8%, meaning that just over 97% of people who recently got tested are negative. That's a good thing, but it's up a little bit, the positivity, and our rate of transmission has now gone back up to 1-to-1, meaning that if you're infected, you are likely to infect one other person in your midst. We got to get that number back down below 1. We knew that it would go up when we started to reopen. Frankly, Steve and I have talked about this, we didn't anticipate Florida, Arizona, Texas, California, North Carolina, South Carolina, etc., all exploding, and some additional amount of rate of transmission has crept into New Jersey. We're doing everything we can to keep a wall up, if you will. If you've been to a hotspot state, please self-quarantine for 14 days and get tested. We've got over 240 locations in the state to get tested, and please go out and do it. I also want to acknowledge, again, bear with me, the latest unemployment numbers released this morning. Over the past 4 months, think about this, folks, and by the way, Irvington is no exception. I'm not sure where Tony went, but nearly 1.4 million New Jersey workers have filed claims for unemployment. 1.4 million New Jerseyans out of a community of just about 9 million, including 38,000 over the prior week. There's little solace, but that 38,000 is down about 20% week over week, but it's still way too much. The unprecedented toll this pandemic has had on our workforce and on their families continues. But so too, I have to say, does the work of our Department of Labor and Commissioner Rob Acero-Angelo and his team to ensure that every eligible New Jerseyan gets every penny of the benefit they deserve. And so far, you ready for this? The department has cleared between state money and federal money since this started $10.7 billion for delivery to these workers and families. The numbers are staggering. It bears repeating, 96% of all who have been deemed monetarily eligible have received at least one payment. In 2019, New Jersey, I'm proud to say, led all states in the percentage of unemployed workers who received benefits. And please God, that's the case again this year, even though the tsunami is unprecedented. And it is unprecedented. Many Many, and I want to repeat something we say a lot, many of the unresolved cases are very particular to that individual. So there's no blanket, the system went down over the weekend, or there's some change in policy. In almost every case, if you haven't been able to get payment yet, it's because of something very specific. I'll give you one example. Waiting to confirm if you travel across the Hudson into New York to work, waiting to confirm what the New York status is would be one example. New Jersey is not alone, by the way, in this. And the strain to deliver a historic level of benefits is being felt literally in every state across the country. But if you're frustrated, that does you little solace, and I don't blame you. Hang in there. We will get to you. I know that the commissioner and his team will continue their tremendous work to deliver much needed support to every eligible New Jersey home. So now, if I may, moving back to the topic of the day as to why we're gathered. New Jersey is blessed to be home to one of, if not the nation's best public school systems. We are home to arguably the best educators anywhere. Let's hear it for the educators out there. We are a national model in so many ways, from being the first state to provide universal arts education. By the way, first and only state still to do that, to being the first state to incorporate climate change into our statewide educational standards, to our groundbreaking focus on STEM fields, which will give us a stronger and more resilient workforce to drive our future. Our classrooms stand head and shoulders above the rest, and I am so proud of the work of our administration working with legislative leaders like the ones I'm with today to direct more funding into our classrooms. But, and there's a big but here, and we all know that, because of COVID-19, our classrooms have been empty, and educators and students statewide, indeed nationwide, have traded in their desks for the kitchen table. That experience changed the educational experience, and it has also exposed something which we knew existed, but it has exposed an untenable divide. Not every student has a laptop or other device or a reliable connection to the internet from their home. And with libraries and community centers closed due to the pandemic, the online access points that many in our communities rely upon were simply unavailable. Knowing that the Department of Education estimates roughly 230,000 of our students were put at a disadvantage in comparison to their peers because of a lack of technology or a reliable internet connectivity, that flies in the face of the progress that we have made in ensuring equal educational opportunity in the traditional classroom. Right here in Irvington, April and Tony and your colleagues know this, the department estimates that the digital gap impacts nearly 4,700 students, or that's roughly 58% of the total student body in this proud city. And so today I am honored to be with these leaders to announce the steps we're going to take to close the digital divide, to eliminate this disadvantage, and to ensure every student, not most but every, has the same opportunity to learn, whether it be in person or online. The estimated cost of closing this divide is not small. Kevin and his colleagues estimated as about $115 million. But this is a cost we cannot ignore in light of the current fiscal reality by pushing it off to another year. We must address this now. While districts across the state are working hard to ensure a safe, underline safe, return for their students this fall, we are also aware that for some students, remote learning will remain a part of their experience. As time is of the essence for districts to finalize their plans, so too it is for us to ensure that that divide is closed. Nearly half of this funding gap can be closed directly by districts through their existing CARES Act, and that's federal money from Congress signed by the President, CARES Act and Title I federal funding awards. But we will not stop with nearly half, and we will not leave districts to figure this out on their own. To complete this bridge, which the department estimates is roughly $54 million of that total of $115 million, we will use, first of all, $10 million in state-directed CARES Act, so-called elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, or ESSER funds, for one-time digital divide formula grants to districts. Additionally, we will commit up to $44 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. We will also commit, by the way, an additional support from this fund of up to $6 million to address the digital divide in our non-public schools. Given the reality in many districts that remote learning will continue in some form throughout the upcoming school year, this is a wholly prudent use of these funds. And finally, again under Kevin's leadership, the Department of Education, in partnership with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, is directly engaging the philanthropic community to get additional help from both philanthropic and industry partners in closing this gap. Any help we can get from our business and philanthropic community will allow us to stretch our state funds even further to offset other costs that districts face in reopening. This effort will have the added benefit of allowing districts to work directly, if they so choose, with charitable partners, cutting through red tape and other regulations that could otherwise slow the delivery of needed funding and the receipt of much needed equipment. No one told me to say this, but I could almost even envision adopt a district notion by a philanthropic entity or a corporate entity. We are committed to bridging the digital divide among our students over the long term and aren't just focused on a quick fix for a single school year. Clearly, this need has gone unmet for too long, and as I said, the pandemic has exposed a deep divide that must be corrected now, but also maintained moving forward. I can't emphasize enough that we need the philanthropic community to step up as well so that the closing of this divide lasts forever and always. Corporations, foundations, individuals ask me, I'm sure they ask Steve and Teresa all the time, how can I help? This is a terrific way to help some of our neediest and, by the way, most talented students and families in New Jersey. For 3 months, from March 18th through the end of the academic year, New Jersey students and educators were asked to do what no group of students and educators had ever been asked, ever, to transition from the familiar in-person educational experience to the unfamiliar remote learning experience. We know that in many communities, the majority of our students and educators were able to virtually connect every day. But when it comes to educating our kids, I think we can all agree that words like many and most are simply not good enough. And today we're taking a firm step to ensure that every student has what they need to succeed in these unprecedented times. With that, please help me welcome a great leader, and as I say, I take my hat off to him today for getting the very difficult task of allowing the state to bond, to raise money for us to invest again in the programs that we so desperately need. Top of the list is education. Please help me welcome the Senate President, Senator Steve Sweeney.
Thank you. This is and Governor, it wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was the right thing to do, and I was proud that we got it done. And to my friend Tony Voss, Mayor Voss, it's great to see you again. You know, this is a wonderful community, and they have a lot of beautiful children, a lot of smart children, and because of financial wealth or position, some children get an opportunity for an education and some don't. That's not how it should be. It should be that we all have that opportunity. The greatest equalizer in the world is an education. And it's a shame that children be denied that opportunity. So, Governor, I want to thank you for your commitment to the children of this state, because these are tough times and there's not a lot of money. But this is critically important that he's going to ensure that all, that's a big word, all children are going to be assured the opportunity to an education. We all should give the governor another round of applause for that. Thank you. And to probably one of the greatest champions of children in this state, my colleague, Senator Teresa Ruiz. This isn't politics. This is her life. It's her passion. Believe me, you don't want to be on the wrong side of her. So I think she got the governor and me and everyone else in the right place pretty quick. But this does mean something. You know, government matters. You know, when people say you just spend a lot of money on stuff, these are lives. When you look at that budget, every line item is someone being affected. It's a life being affected. And again, I believe the greatest opportunity for us to succeed is to provide quality education, and I know that's what Senator Ruiz has done since she's been there. How many Einsteins have we lost, right? How many brilliant kids did we lose because they didn't get an opportunity for an education? The fact that we're standing here today with this administration and my leader of the Education Committee is important, and it's a good day. So I'm here to celebrate with everyone. Teresa, a lot of the children in this state owe a great deal of gratitude for your advocacy on their behalf, and it does make a difference when you give children a chance. Thank you all.
Amen, Steve. Amen to that. And again, most and many are not words that are going to work anymore. It's got to be everybody, all our kids. Brendan, I think of your dad. How many years have you been teaching high school? 51 years. Let's hear it from Mr. Gill, by the way. Unbelievable. And all the educators, unbelievable. She's already been introduced by several of us, but I don't know where we would be without her. As a senator, as an Essex County, and in her case, Newark resident, someone who knows this community cold, as chairwoman of the Senate Education Committee, day in and day out. She is a crusader and a leader, again, for not most or many, but for all. Please help me welcome Senator Teresa Ruiz. Bless you. I love your news, by the way.
Thank you. So first, let me just take an opportunity to thank the Township of Irvington for welcoming me here. I have a phenomenal relationship with your mayor, who I consider an extraordinary friend. This is what happens to, you know, when you wear hoops, right? I see the women nodding their heads. They know what the deal is. For his phenomenal friendship, but most importantly for his tenacity in his belief for people in the community. I want to give an opportunity right now to, and we've said this, all of us, different spaces. You've heard it before. Our teachers went above and beyond in turning their living rooms into learning labs of academies. Not only that, but providing hope and consistency for all of our children. I know many of you saw that. I saw it from a professional level. I saw it as a colleague. I saw it as an elected official, but I also saw it as a mother, where from my kitchen table to my teacher, to my daughter's preschool teachers, didn't matter where was the moment, whether it was the living room, the kitchen, or the dining room, she was there offering some consistency, which is so critically and valuably needed for our children. And so thank you to the whole entire academic community in the entire state, from our superintendents down to our cafeteria workers, who each, to be honest with you, as a working mother, you all take care of my girl more than the time that I spend with her, and that's just a matter of fact, right? So I am grateful for all the work that you do. To the newly appointed superintendent, I wish you well, and I share my prayers with you. To my Senate president, who consistently has to take my phone calls because he has no choice, to hear me passionately, I'm going to use that word in quotations, advocating for many things that I believe in. Thank you for your leadership and for believing in me. And to a man who, in a moment of own personal health, really had to flip his livelihood and turn on his game to 100% to deal with a pandemic that has struck not Irvington, not Essex County, not Newark, not the state, but the entire global world. And he did it unselfishly. And so I want to say to you, he has asked us, even though I don't have him on right now, he has asked us to mask up. That is the least we can do in the Garden State. I applaud you for calling us to be socially responsible. I applaud you for every single decision that is based in health, whether it causes us some strife. If it is a decision that is in the best interest of protecting human beings, then I applaud you and I support you on that endeavor. COVID-19 did something very particular to policymakers, to communities, to this country, and to the world. It uncovered the ugly truth that so many of us always knew. The digital divide, the learning divide that exists in New Jersey is not something that happened over the last 5 months. It's something that many of us have been screaming about for decades, to say, yes, New Jersey is #1 in the country for public schools, but that is not the truth for all of my children. And until we brand that New Jersey #1 public schools for every single human child from Irvington to Camden to Newark to East Orange, then we still have great work to accomplish. But today we realize that we are making inroads, because what we can do in this time is say, we don't have money, there are other things, there are other pressing issues. We have an opportunity to realize that the systems that were created, even though well-intended, were never really set up to work to its 100% level. So as policymakers, we get an opportunity to reinvent ourselves in this time frame. You cannot close your eyes, you cannot cover your ears, and how to say in Spanish, no puedes tapar el sol con tu mano, because the truth is facing all of us. It doesn't matter what sector of the economy we're talking about, what social policy we're engaging, but the response is, will we create legislation? Will we create regulations? Will we create policies and make decisions from an administrative perspective that will protect every single person in an equitable manner? And today, the administration's proposal and the governor's words are leading us in that direction. And I am proud to be part of that. There is great work to be done, but this is a great first step. We don't know what September is going to hold. We don't know what will happen. We do know that many schools will be going hybrid. Let's equip every single child with the resources that they need. Let's get ready for that family to be secure for the digital learning if it has to happen. And ultimately, at the end, the fiduciary resources into this, to all of the corporations that call New Jersey their home, to all of the internet providers who have stepped up, I'm asking you to step up even more. Be sure that every child is connected, not solely your own. Make sure that when September rolls around, regardless as to what our classroom setting looks like, that each one of us is trying to do the best to be sure that that child reaches their maximum potential that God has instilled in them. I will continue to fight until every single student in the Garden State can say, I go to this school, and guess what? It is the #1 public school in the country. Much work has to be done, but this is a great step in the right direction, and I am grateful for your leadership. En español, so voy a coger un momento y disculpa mi español. Hoy el gobernador y la administración han escuchado las voces de nuestra familia y se han unido en una agenda pública que ahora vamos a conectar nuestra familia a la tecnología necesitada para aprender de nuestras casas. Los últimos meses han sido sumamente difíciles para todos nosotros, pero imagínate tú no entender el lenguaje, no tener computadora, no tener acceso al internet. Todos esos niveles de presiones contribuyen a nuestros estudiantes no tener la oportunidad para hacer lo mejor que pueden hacer. So, hoy tomamos esa primer plaza a llegar a una meta que cada de nuestros estudiantes van a estar conectados a una computadora y acceso. School settings should be the greatest equalizer. That is what they were intended to. I oftentimes share this story. You can go down to the local bodega and play a Mega or a Powerball, and I suggest you all do that. We need the revenue, you know, contribute. And your trajectory for your life will entirely change, because this is about where you stand in a moment of social and fiscal status, right? People will look at you differently. Or you can walk into a classroom and get the opportunity to receive 100% of an academic setting and have an equal launching pad as everyone else in the state, where you know that if you jump off and no one gets in your way, you can make it to the finish line and soar just like everybody else. That's what New Jersey schools should be about. That's what today's announcement is about. It's about equity, it's about inclusion, but most of all, I ask all of my colleagues, we have a great opportunity here in the state. Let's continue to create policy and legislation based in truth. When we speak truth to power, the opportunities for our communities are endless. So thank you very much.
Amen to all, Senator. By the way, the Senate President and I both agreed your Spanish is outstanding.
Thank you.
But seriously, two points I want to reiterate if I could. One is your plea to the corporate and philanthropic communities. I mentioned it, you mentioned it. We've been able to pull this together from different pots, and it's a game changer. But we want the philanthropic money to come in alongside this. It'll be even more robust. And then secondly, you said it, and the Senate President said it. This has nothing to do with whether we're going back to school, what it looks like. We need this no matter what schooling looks like. It's our strong intention to get back in some form or fashion into the classrooms. But we've all decided too long. It must be eliminated immediately, and with today's announcements, it will be. I was incredibly honored to have two extraordinary cabinet members in the field of education along by my side for the first 2.5 years of our administration. And they've each taken on new responsibilities. One of them is here today, and at great sacrifice, leaving her position as the Secretary of the Office of Higher Education to come in to oversee all of our policies across the entire waterfront of policy. I want to just acknowledge and ask her to stand up. Among many colleagues with me today, Dr. Zakiya Smith-Ellis is with us. Hiding behind a mask, as we all are at the moment. Zakiya, great to have you. The other, your colleague, the other guy, Dr. Lamont Repillette, formerly the superintendent in the great community of Asbury Park down by me in Monmouth County, has moved on to become president of Keene University. That's, to me, a little bit of a 1 + 1 = 3, even though we've lost Lamont and he's an extraordinary leader. Keene University historically is a huge, major pipeline for educators in our state and beyond, but certainly in the state of New Jersey. So we wish Lamont in absentia nothing but the very best, and he ran through the tape, as they say, as he was leaving. Which brings me to introducing our next speaker, a guy you may not have spent a lot of time with, but you will find him extraordinarily impressive. He's the professional's professional. Please help me welcome the Interim Commissioner of the Department of Education, Kevin Deamer. Good job, buddy.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, Senators, Mayor Voss, and Superintendent Voss, and distinguished guests for the opportunity to participate in today's event. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of equipping our districts and students with the tools necessary to successfully engage in remote instruction. Over the past school year, students and families and educators have had to adjust to remote learning, and they stand ready to take on the new school year that will include learning environment different from what they've known in previous years. It's clear that remote learning will be part of our educational landscape in the coming year. I'm proud of the work the department has done so far to narrow the and release funding to districts from the CARES Act Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This program provides over $300 million to help New Jersey schools respond to COVID-19, including the purchasing of educational technology. In addition, the department provided schools with guidance on a broad range of federal funding sources that are already available. Work to quantify the digital divide in New Jersey schools. We performed our first surveys in March and April, the department's first mandatory survey last month. The June survey found that while some districts have been able to fully implement a technology-forward education model, other districts continue to grapple with the impacts of the digital divide. But in all cases, student access to devices and technology is at the forefront. With each survey that we've done, schools have been able to supply more accurate information about the needs in their districts, greater insight into how we're transitioning to remote learning. For instance, we found that 96% of students grades 3 to 12 took part in online instruction this past year. Our goal now is to advance the bar toward 100% of all students who can fully participate in online remote learning in the coming school year. We set our priorities by using the district survey data for a number of devices that were needed, combined with enrollment and rates of students from low-income families. We used a reasonable cost estimate to determine the total cost of providing both devices and internet access. when we accounted for the availability of CARES Act funds and Title I carryover as well. Through this process, the department identified a gap of $53.6 million needed to bridge the digital divide. In identifying funding to bridge this gap and utilizing federal grants available for schools and devices, we expect our efforts will reach more than 230,000 students. In addition, we're committing up to $6 million to non-public schools because we know many non-public school students struggle with the digital divide as well. Today, we are pleased to announce the Digital Divide Grant, which will be funded in part through $10 million of the state's CARES Act set-aside funding